Good evening. Welcome to this episode of Prophecy for the Last Hour. My name is Liz McGee. I am the host tonight, and I'm going to be teaching Meet again at the dinner hour. And as you can see, I guess you can't see it as well, I have my little worlds. These are all the realms and dimensions that we're going to be talking about tonight. And I have my stacking boxes back. So I have some of my toys that I'm going to use for object lessons. So this is so high tech. But I'm a visual person, and I really learn well when things are demonstrated to me visually. So if you're that kind, that'll be right up your alley. So I'm going to start off tonight. I'm going to get back a little bit to my first love. I'm really going to now, hopefully without any huge more rabbit trails, delve in and teach what I think I know best and are kind of called to disseminate. And again, it's Kabbalah. I'm sorry, this is something this is my one preachy part, I think, hopefully. I really believe that Jewish mysticism, I have a lot of tapes on these teachings you need to understand. That I'm talking about our heritage, our patriarchs, our fathers, our knowledge and wisdom from the Father that has been passed down generationally. And it's in its deepest level, it is contained in Jewish mystical writings called the Kabbalah, which actually now, this is maybe, we have to understand and grow up into Christ and stop being afraid, and we have to educate ourselves and learn what this world is about. It is the gold standard, all right? Of all the writings, it's my opinion, it is the gold standard by which everything else can be measured and understood once you understand it. It's in a language. One of my whole things with the Bible now is I realized and really worked at teaching myself. The Bible uses words in a way of a language that we don't use anymore. So half the time, we don't know what they're talking about. We just blow off it. But I'm learning the language, or the keys to the kingdom, and how to interpret these words and these concepts very Hebraically. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. And since I was going to write a book, and I don't know if that's me, I'd like to do some some studies and write some study guides on this so people could kind of track and follow along. If you're interested in that, just put a little, there's my YouTube channel, just put a little blurb in there saying you'd be interested. I think that would be a better way to go. But anyways, so we're dealing here with Yahweh Elohim communicating with us using language, but language is so much more in the Kabbalistic Hebraic mind. We are not talking about dry words on a page. We are talking about symbols that convey ideas and concepts, cosmic things, and things that we can't see or understand, and all the way down to the table here. So the language is meant to express all the realms, all the worlds, in ways that we can comprehend, that has been revealed to us. The Bible is really clear from a Hebraic point of view that of the different levels, I've been over some of these things, that I'll give you 1, 2, 3, 4 different ways. You could say there is the saw, the literal, what I'm seeing in front of me, interpretation, the declared, the arranged, and the probe. Those are just different words that talk about the same thing here now. The literal, the allegorical, the midrashic, and the mystical. And then you could move over, and now we're using it in very Kabbalistic terms here. You have the physical, the physicality of the creation. You have the angels. You have the chariot, which is and you have the Sephiroth. All right? And then you also have another way that's in Hebraic understanding called pards, which is, again, talking about these 4 levels. There's the literal level, the plain meaning, there is a hint level, there is a application level, and there is the mystical, the sod, the secret, the hidden level. And that's where we need to move into So if you've been into Hebraic roots, if you've been had any understanding now of our Torah background, of our true roots, Nazarene and Essene, this is what I want to say. If you're into the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Essenes, and the literature that's been found, the mystical writings, these were called the Nazarenes, the keepers of the secrets. Those secrets are highly Kabbalistic, and it's time that we probe those, we get a handle on it, and we can articulate it. We understand what we're dealing with, because we live at the end of the age, and one of the good things it's promised is that the knowledge of the Lord is going to cover the earth again like the waters cover the sea. This knowledge, you're going to find out, is like everywhere. It's very out there. But it is not, except for truly in Jewish Kabbalah, attributed to Yahweh Elohim, to the Most High God. And this is a problem, because every knee is going to bow and every tongue is going to confess. It is his show. It's his universe, and he is going to get the glory and the credit for it. Now, most of the Bible, the thing is, it's very esoteric, and most of the first 3 chapters, if people are new to all this, and they pick up a Bible and they start in Genesis, and they read the first 3 chapters, all of a sudden you're like, what are these people talking about? It is some of the most encrypted and esoteric understandings on the planet. It's a very cut and paste when you understand it. I mean, they can't possibly put everything that's known and understood in these 3 chapters. Some of the biggest, or I will tell you the biggest subject matters, the whole creation of the universe, the whole origin of man, the origins of everything are there, but they're in very condensed and encrypted understandings unless you understand what you're looking at, And so we have to get back to this. One of the things about the creation stories in Genesis, and I'll just want to go to this, because if you don't, see, this has been our problem, and I'm really done with this. I am done with Satan stealing. He's a stealer. He's a thief. He's constantly taking God's glory and twisting it around, taking the glory from God and giving it to himself or whatever. And this is what happens if you don't, so much of our heritage, our truth that Adam had, he took out of the garden with him. He had it, went all the way down through the patriarchs, and at many times this knowledge has covered the earth as the waters covered the sea. There's been great revivalists, David in his worldwide kingdom. Under Solomon, under Enoch, the whole earth knew there's been great times, and there will be a final time and a millennial time when it's all out there, and it's just going to be, and there's going to be nobody dogging us. This is the best news of the whole thing. But these are all rabbit trails I don't want to get into. But if you don't understand what you're looking at and reading and the keys and have this understanding, boy, do you could screw things up. This is the problem. This is why people sometimes they wonder about our God, like, oh my gosh, because we don't have these deeper understandings in which to articulate. But in the sciences, I'll just tell you a lot of this. Okay, so Kabbalah is, it's 2 parts, 2 of the biggest parts, in Genesis 1 and Genesis 2 and 3. There's 2 big things that God has explained to us. The creation of the universe and the creation of man. So we don't have to ask questions. It's really all there. Everything you'd ever wanted to know is there. We just haven't really been able to access it. And every generation has been losing more and more information on how to access these truths. And that's why we're kind of stuck in the corner we are today. But things like evolution, the Big Bang Theory, the theory of multiverses, string theory, quantum physics, that is all coming right out of the Kabbalah. That is all highly, the physics, the creation, the universe that God made, and the Hebrews understood this, and these things are not new. Abraham knew all about this stuff, and he invented, so I won't give you too many rabbit trails, but we don't know that. We let the scientists, we let the scientists, these secular, 90% God-hating, God-rejecting people tell us about the universe that our God created. It's like, no, I don't think so. So I'm kind of done with this. So the other part is like, okay, in psychology, Carl Jung comes with this whole big, the psychology of the human psyche, and we've got this ego and this id and all this stuff. He's pulling that right out of Kabbalah, okay? And he's repackaging it and renaming it, and he was a Jew, and isn't giving God any of the glory, and is skewering it. So when people need help in their soul category, and they're trying to use psychology, there's no power in it. It's not going to help you in the final analysis. Okay, so this is why we're not getting anywhere. Technology. Here's another one. All the technologies today that we know are just killing the planet. I mean, the whole concept of using a combustible engine, as we're going to find out, and a lot of people, it's ruining the planet. It's where there's been all sorts of alternative energy sources that are coming right out of the Kabbalah of harnessing, solar and wind. So we would not be in half of the problems that we have if we had, but it says my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. So I'm just saying it's done. We need to reclaim this information, and we need to stop being afraid. We have the mind of Christ. I've said all this stuff. Okay, so let me go. And the last one I want to say, what you won't get, this is in the 3 pillars. Okay, see, so in the flat earth and whole discussion, this is an area where if you don't understand the multiverses and what's being talked about and what's going on, and you get words like pillars, and you're thinking that the earth is really literally, because I've seen diagrams online, people are trying to put pillars, physical, pillars in there to uphold the earth. That's not at all what it's talking about, okay? So it just makes us look like fools. The pillars, and I'll explain that it has to do with the threefold, actually. There's the left hand and the right hand. These are in the allegorical and mystical understandings, in the other worlds, how God has ordered the universe so that it has a structure. And there is a left pillar and the right hand pillar and the middle pillar. But the thing is if you don't understand who and what the pillars represent, and you don't understand that the Freemasons, and the whole point of most of the regurgitated esoteric information that comes back to you, either through Hermetic Kabbalah and a lot of magical and secret society stuff, is a complete regurgitation where they totally take Yahweh and the sun out of it. Okay? So, all that being said. So listen, so when you're looking at, and I'm going to paint with a broad brush, I'm going to go over some of these archetypes, and then next week I'm just going to go deeper and deeper into this stuff. So, in the creation stories, because I had this dialogue with someone, a lot of people say there's 2 creation stories in Genesis, and well, what's that all about? If you read it closely, well, yes, there are, okay, and it's there for a reason, because they're telling the creation of 2 different things, but there's a lot of commonality, and there is some overlap, but yes, they are different, but they're not at odds with each other. There's this concept in the whole Kabbalah that you can look at this cosmos that God created, like anything. You can look at it from the top down. You can be at the top. Let's just say this is the highest heaven where God is, and he's looking down his creation. Flip side, we're down here, so to speak, and we're looking up. Those are whole huge perspectives. They're not going to give you the same thing if you're looking down or you're looking up, okay? So the first part, the first chapter of Genesis is really giving you what is called in the 6 days, which is called the work of creation, which is the whole universe. Okay, there is this huge cosmos that encompasses many realms. I mean, we know angels. Where's their realm? Okay, God's throne. There are realms where there's living things. Living beings doing real things, okay? So this creation story, see, this whole concept, and there's a Hebraic concept in Kabbalah especially called Adam Kadmon. This is sort of like a word to explain and we could use it in Christianity, the cosmic Christ who fills all in all. There is a boundary, now known maybe to God, but there is a boundary to this thing, okay? It is a creation All right. Now let me just say this as a disclaimer, in all Kabbalistic and Hebraic understandings, Elohim, the Most High, the Father, is outside of the creation. He's not, he made it, he's in it, but he is bigger and better and badder, and he's outside of it, okay? So you have to always keep that in mind. But when you get down into the creation, the physics of it, where there's so much information on the physics of the creation that is tucked into Kabbalah, which is where, and they're discovering today that the whole concept of quantum physics perfectly fits in, the multiverse theory, even the Big Bang, and I will tell you a little secret, and even evolution. But what really, I have to say, pisses me off about these people when you don't understand, and we can't defend ourselves. Sure, he created a physical universe, but when he created Adam, we're not talking evolution like they want to teach us. He did not evolve. He created Adam, and that's part of the bottom up. Okay, so when you understand, when he talks about the Yahweh Elohim said, let's make man in our image, that's a whole different animal. So this is what I have to say, so I don't lose everybody. Okay, so let me just finish on the physics of the act of creation. That's pretty much what it's called. It has some more Hebraic words to it, but it's the process of creation. It includes all the physics and the structure and the properties, the math, sacred geometry, pi. I mean, a lot of this stuff is in this knowledge that the ancients used it, knew about it. Why do you think those pyramids are still standing? Some of the math, sacred geometry is something we need to reclaim. The whole universe is mathematical. It's one of the languages of God. Light, sound, and math. Okay, basically. These are systems that he put in place that are linear and functional, and they just go forward. I've said, okay, and then and it goes from an invisible realm, God, the mind, the essence of God, who, no man can see God in this sense at any time. We're not wired in any way, shape, or form to physically, with our eyes, see something like that. You can access this realm, and I'll get into that, with your mind, your inner hearing, inner sight, the mind, revelation, spiritual wisdom and revelation knowledge. But it starts from the invisible and it comes all the way down into creation, into materiality, into physicality, where we are. That's all in there, and there's unbelievable stuff, and we need to go in there and we need to reclaim it, clean it up, get rid of all the occultic, anti-Torah, anti-Yahweh things that are in there, okay? And we need to make it work for humanity, because there's unbelievable systems in here that will bless people that don't have all this baggage and pollution and bad side effects. And oh my gosh. Anyways, the other side of the story, you have what is called the work of the chariot, or the Merkabah. These are some of the Hebraic Kabbalistic terms. This is the creation of Adam. And it starts with his soul. This is why when Ezekiel is sort of on the ground, he looks up and he sees these 4 living beasts. Well, those are code words for things that are going on. Those are 4 categories. This is the beginning of the soul life. So you got to understand, and I'll get into this. The soul, we're a body, materiality, we're a soul. And hopefully, if you're born again, the Ruach HaKadosh, the Spirit, you have a spiritual connection. You are born of your Father again, which is the Spirit. Okay? But in this soul category, it's big. It's big. It's bigger, actually, than the world of matter. Okay? So in this, he's looking up and he's beginning to see the systems, the operating systems that influence and make and interface with our soul. And it includes, in this category, there's a lot on his physical body, because Adam was made of the earth, which is talking about, let me just stop here when it says earth. Again, earth is a really loaded phrase in Hebraic understanding. It has nothing to do with the globe or the flat earth. It's a concept of the 4 elemental building blocks of life, okay? The chemical, the core DNA kind of building blocks chemically, biologically, electrically, and this gets into the 4 elements. There are 4 elements. And this is where I'm really going to go. I'm going to finally unpack these things. I think I can get to some of this stuff. So there's a physicality, there's the psychological, which is your soul, your soul, and all the way up into the spiritual realms. Okay, now so that's all in this Merkabah. Okay, this is sort of what Ezekiel was seeing, but this is a whole body of understanding. All right, and there are 4 realms. So let me just give you a couple of quotes here, just so I'm saying. So it says, while these calculations may explain, see, one of the things how the universe could be dated to over 15 billion years old. Now that's sort of the Big Bang number, but it completely jives with a Kabbalistic understanding of the ages, many ages, and I won't go into this, the math. They have kept track of this, it's in there. But then there's the creation of Adam, a wholly different kind of thing going on here. Okay, that's Adam Cademan, I said. This whole big, which is really the, it is, I don't want to go into, get very philosophical on all this stuff. But anyways, to the Jewish calendar, which I think we're in 5777. But anyways, there is an origin on the 6th day of this Adam and Eve, okay? And this Adamic race that has boots on the ground. And there's a lot of stories about that. There's still, then you get into the garden, and the serpent and the apple, and that's another whole huge chunk of the piece of the puzzle. Like, what happened? How did the whole thing kind of go south? Okay? So, as stated previously, there are 2 beginnings according to Jewish understanding. The first chapter of Genesis is understood traditionally to be speaking of the initial creation of the universe, while the second chapter speaks of the creation of Adam. Here's another way of saying it. The question still remains, when did this beginning take place? According to Jewish tradition, there are 2 beginnings in the book of Genesis. There is the beginning of the universe, like I have been saying, which is contained in the 6 days of creation, and then there is the creation of Adam, which begins with the formation of the soul of the first man. So then here's another one, and there are essentially 2 ways of approaching, and here we get the tree of life. See, a lot of these things are couched now in, I'm going to show you, in big pictograms. Okay, the tree of life is one of the biggest pictograms that God has, and he tries to explain, what's going on and how things relate and how it works and what it sort of looks like, but it doesn't really look. But so there are essentially 2 ways of approaching the tree of life. To put it simply, one can study it from the top down or from the bottom up. The study of the tree of life from the top down is an analysis of the process of creation, beginning with what we can know about God, going through the heavenly realms, then down to earth and man himself. It's in traditionally going the other way. It's called the bottom up approach, which begins with man, including his physical, psychological, and spiritual makeup, continuing his spiritual journey. That's up Jacob's ladder. That is a totally Hebraic understanding, okay? And there's tons of writing. See, this is the thing. You get this one chapter in Genesis, but the rabbis, this is something that I just wish people have to understand. You cannot let yourself stay locked into these, like, quote-unquote, 66 books, if you're an evangelical, the least amount of books that anyone in any generation has accessed for knowledge about God. And you won't believe me, but it's absolutely true. There are so many writings. This is the point. And they're all coming back. It's like books out of the earth. There's a prophecy that the Dead Sea Scrolls in the Qumran, that the knowledge, again, the books would just literally come out of the earth. Well, that's exactly what happened in the Dead Sea Scrolls. Okay, it's time. We're in a restoration. This is all going to come back to us. Now, when you get into this whole concept that relates both to Adam, to the man, primordial man, and to the Adam Cademan, there are 4 basic realms, okay? Now, that's a little bit different. There are 10 heavens, okay? Because there's and I can't get into that, but, okay, I didn't want to get, there are 4 realms. In Isaiah 43:7, and this is where Hebrew is very specific. You have to study your words. You have to try to get not every word. See, this is the thing about the Hebrew language, just the life essence of everything, and this is how is in their name. That's why names were so important, and that's why they would have so many epithets and so many different ways of saying it, because, you know, I mean, just myself, I'm a mother, but I'm a daughter, but I'm a wife, but I'm a teacher, you know, so I have a lot of, so there's a lot of different names a lot of times, but they're life essences. They express something very specifically, and when they're changed, like Abram became Abraham, these are loaded with understandings, okay? You just can't blow it off. It's done very deliberately and for very precise reasons. So there are 4 realms that Elohim talks about, and like I said, the first realm, the highest realm, you know, is Ein Sof, is you can't, it's the uncreated. See, I'm not saying God is an uncreated God. He has no beginning and no end, okay? But he made a creation, he placed us in it as the apple of his eye. Isn't that lovely? But in other words, when you read Genesis 43:7, there's 3 words: he created, he formed, and he made. And those are very, very different words. They totally speak of different things, different processes that have gone into this whole thing. So when you're creating something, only God can create, but you know, we can make stuff, and then there's the whole concept of forming. There's different levels of this thing, okay? But and this is the crux of the matter. How the visible matter, the body, let's say Adam and Eve, you know, were in their materiality, because even then they were not fallen beings, and they were placed in the garden, placed here to be the rulers, the authorities, the kings, the priests, and the prophets, you know, their generation, their kids, their progeny, okay? How did they get subject to corruption, okay? And it really comes, and it's a mystery, and it really comes down to a whole concept of propagating out of order. Okay, when you don't do things in God's, he has a very precise order how things are supposed to be propagated. Because if you read Gen, it's all about propagation. It's all about multiplication. If you do it out of Hoyle, it creates a virus. It creates a problem. And that's exactly what happened with Eve in the garden, the whole thing. And oh my gosh, it's been a mess. But we're getting close to the fixed time, so that's great. So there are these concepts, the bottom up, the top down, you have to understand, and there's a huge kind of, the word is even talking about the invisible realms coming down into the visible realms, okay? So, and they fit. This is the thing about it. They fit. And this is so interesting, and like I've always been saying, how the typology of God, he's very linear, he's not all over the place. When you find a truth of God, it always fits, it's very orderly, things are decent and in order. But see, when you create a hybrid, or you create something or get ahead of the game, you got a problem. So anyways, there's 2 things. There's the tree of life, and there is the Adam Cademan. These are 2 of the most prevalent archetypes. And see, this is the thing in some symbology in early ancient, you'll see it everywhere depicted, but we have never really understood what we've been looking at, okay? I mean, they have found the tree of life, just the Kabbalistic tree of life. Oh, I wish I had my picture here. The tree of life, if you Google it, it comes up with these little circle symbols. They're symbols. It's a Kabbalistic understanding, Jewish, of how God has sort of, see, it's just a round circle, but it's loaded. It's like packed. It's like an egg, just loaded with understanding, okay? And then how that relates to another one next to it, because it's a very, okay? So you have the cosmic body, and you have the tree of life. You have the human body and the tree of life, and they're actually very similar. And a lot of times the allegories and the mystery does overlap. Okay, so and then there's the temple and the tabernacle, but that's very Jewish. But basically, most of the whole, because of Enoch and the way the world, they all knew about this understanding, these kinds of, from the tree of life and the cosmic body, the human body. Okay, so that is not necessarily at all Jewish. Okay, it is so. Let me go into some of these, the tree of life. Let me just try to unpack a couple of these archetypes.